Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
I was sipping my morning coffee on the deck when I saw them. Two men in orange vests with surveyor equipment standing right in the middle of my backyard. At first I thought they were lost. Maybe some city workers sent to the wrong address. So I walked out barefoot across the grass and asked, "Can I help you?" One of them, a guy with a trimmed beard and mirrored sunglasses, looked up and said, "Just marking new boundaries for the HOA, sir." I blinked. "HOA? I'm not in the HOA," he shrugged. "Talk to your board, we're just following instructions." That's when a white SUV pulled up at the curb. Out stepped a woman in heels, clipboard in hand, designer sunglasses perched like a crown. I'd seen her once before, Hazel Clark, president of the Clinton Estates HOA. She strutted up like she owned the ground beneath my feet. "Mr. Monroe," she asked crisply, "you should have received our notice last month. We're expanding the community's shared use spaces. That section of your yard is officially common property now." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "That's my land, it's on my deed," she nodded. "Yes, well, the original plat map had discrepancies. We passed a bylaw to correct it. The trees are being cleared this week to make room for the children's playground." "You've lost your mind," I said flatly. She gave a polite smile, the kind you give to someone who's already lost. "You're welcome to file a grievance with the board, but I'm not in your HOA, that's a bit fluid now. You're adjacent, and we have legal standing under the updated charter. Callum will explain." Another man approached, Callum Hayes, the HOA's treasurer. Balding, always in a polo shirt 2 sizes too tight. "It's all above board. The revised plat map shows that the developer incorrectly drew your eastern boundary. This land was meant for communal use." I pulled out my phone. "You're not cutting a single tree. I'm calling the police." "You can do that," Hazel said smoothly. "But they'll tell you it's a civil matter, which we're handling." By sunset, 5 of my trees were marked with fluorescent tape. I ripped them off. The next morning they were back, double layers deep, with metal stakes drilled into the ground. I tried contacting a real estate lawyer, but the earliest appointment I could get was 5 days out. In the meantime, Hazel and her crew were accelerating things. A landscaping crew arrived with chainsaws. I stood in their way. "Sir," said one of the workers, "we've got orders. You don't want to do this." "You're damn right I don't." That night I installed trail cams and motion lights, then couldn't sleep a wink. At 2:13 a.m. I checked the live feed on my phone and saw movement. 3 men in dark hoodies, on property, unloading tools. One of them was Callum. I ran out into the yard in nothing but pajama pants and boots, flashlight in one hand, phone recording in the other. "Get the hell off my property." The 3 of them froze. Callum turned around slow, like this was all just some misunderstanding. "Relax, Elias. We're just prepping for the morning crew, thought we'd save some time." "By trespassing in the middle of the night, you're insane." He stepped forward like he might actually try to reason with me. "Look, the board voted unanimously. We've got the revised plats. You'll see it's not worth fighting." I pointed the flashlight straight into his face. "This land, I pay taxes on it. This isn't a debate." He didn't flinch. "Then you'll need to take it up in court." They left only after I called the sheriff's non-emergency line and started narrating their descriptions. The dispatcher didn't even sound surprised. The next morning, a notice of community access adjustment was duct taped to my fence. In bold red ink at the bottom, I tore it down. Then the real fun began. By the weekend, they'd hired a landscaping crew again, this time with marked HOA vests and a small backhoe. They parked right on the street in front of my house. Hazel stood there like a general directing troops. I stepped out with a copy of my deed and called over, "Anyone want to see the actual legal boundary?" Hazel just smiled and waved at a guy in a safety vest. "You can show that to the judge." The backhoe's engine roared. I stepped in front of it. 2 workers hesitated, clearly not wanting to run over a homeowner. But Hazel marched right over. "You are Elias. I'm protecting my property. Your resistance will be noted in the board's violation log." I could barely believe what I was hearing. "There is no board. I'm not in your HOA," Hazel smirked. "That's where you're wrong. Our expansion vote passed with majority support. By proximity and by shared utilities, your property falls within the updated map. It's all been filed." I stared at her. "You just a new HOA map?" Callum appeared again, waving a copy of what looked like a crayon drawing passed off as an official document. "Filed and notarized, it's legal." I stood there for hours while they cleared brush, cut down a dogwood tree I planted the year I moved in, and spray painted an outline in bright yellow across my lawn. I spent the next day emailing lawyers, the county assessor, anyone who'd listen. Most responded with confusion or told me they'd need time to research the situation. One even asked if I'd mistakenly signed an easement. I hadn't. Then came the worst blow. An email from my title company saying a supplemental document had been filed 6 months after my purchase clarifying HOA adjacent obligations. filed by the I stormed into the next HOA meeting. Hazel, Callum, and 2 others sat smugly behind a folding table in the clubhouse. Folding chairs were filled with a mix of supporters and silent observers. I held up my phone. "You people are forging documents and stealing property." Hazel tilted her head. "Do you have evidence?" I hit play on the nighttime footage. The crowd gasped. Hazel barely blinked. "That's not Callum. That's your grainy opinion." The room went quiet. Callum scratched his neck. Then someone stood up in the back. "I recognize that jacket. That's HOA issued." Gasps rippled again. Hazel stood up quickly and said, "This meeting is adjourned pending review." As people murmured and stood, one man passed me a note. I unfolded it and read. I drove straight to the county clerk's office the next morning, barely letting the doors swing shut behind me. "I need records on parcel 489B, I told the woman behind the glass. She tapped away at her keyboard, gave me a curious glance, then slid a printed packet under the window. That parcel was under dispute 2 years ago. Something weird happened with the ownership filings. Want copies? Yes, everything. I sat in the lobby reading page after page. Parcel 489B belonged to a guy named Marcus Bennett. Lived 2 blocks from me. His property had also backed onto what the HOA now labeled future common space. Just like mine. But here was the kicker. They'd claimed a third of his yard, citing the exact same developer error. There were notes, challenges, legal objections, then silence, like someone had erased the rest of the fight. I found Marcus's house later that afternoon. A faded red truck was parked in the driveway. I knocked, and after a long pause, the door cracked open. He looked at me like he was trying to remember if I was a salesman or trouble. "You from the HOA? Hell no, I'm the one they're trying to bulldoze next. I saw your parcel number in a note. I need to know what happened." He opened the door wider and sighed. "They buried me." He let me in, and we sat at a cluttered kitchen table, his coffee already cold. I had maps, surveys, hell, even a signed affidavit from the developer's lawyer. They didn't care. Every appeal I made lost in paperwork. County said their updated filings looked legit, and if I disagreed, I'd need to sue the HOA directly. "Why didn't you?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I tried, but they slapped me with violations, liens, code enforcement visits. Suddenly my truck was commercial. My deck was out of code. Fines piled up. My lawyer quit after they filed a motion accusing him of professional misconduct. I didn't have the money to keep going." I sat back, stunned. "So you just gave up?" "I moved my fence, sold the shed. I couldn't fight anymore. I left Marcus's place more furious than before. They'd been doing this but this time they picked the wrong person. I made a plan, dig into county records, build a case, go public. But first I needed proof of how deep this went. So I started showing up to HOA meetings every week with my phone recording and a fake smile plastered on my face. I volunteered to help facilitate communication between non-member residents and the board, just to get into the backroom conversations. That's when I noticed Elias Monroe, Board Secretary, wasn't as comfortable as the rest. She always looked over her shoulder. Her notes were meticulous. And once, when Hazel accused someone of malicious misinformation, I saw Iris mouth the words. After one meeting, I followed her to the parking lot. "Iris," I called out. "Wait." She paused, clutching her bag like she expected me to yell. "I think you want out. I think you've seen what they're doing." She didn't deny it, just looked tired. "It's worse than you think. Prove it." She reached into her bag, pulled out a USB drive and handed it to me. "Use this carefully. If Hazel finds out I gave it to you." She didn't finish the sentence. Just got into her car and drove off without another word. That night I plugged the drive into my laptop and stared in disbelief at a folder labeled "The First File" with at the top. The USB drive was a goldmine of backroom corruption. Not just documents, but recordings. Actual of board meetings that were never made public. Hazel's voice was front and center in all of them. This is about raising property values for everyone, even if it means pushing out some stubborn holdouts. Elias Monroe will fold. They all do. They had a term for homeowners like me, fringers. People on the edge of the HOA map, ripe for annexation. There was even a spreadsheet titled, complete with parcel numbers, estimated square footage they planned to seize, and estimated costs of litigation versus intimidation. Callum's voice was worse. "Look, if they won't play nice, we slap them with complaints. Code violations, city noise ordinances, expired permits. You break their will before you break ground." They had done this before, multiple times. I recognized at least 4 names on that list. Neighbors who'd suddenly sold their homes for personal reasons. Now it made sense. I had proof. I could go public. I printed everything, copies in 3 places, sent it to a lawyer friend out of state, emailed an anonymous drop to a local reporter, posted clips on a burner social media account. Within days, the neighborhood was buzzing. A community Facebook page exploded with accusations, disbelief, and HOA damage control. Hazel tried to host an emergency transparency session in the clubhouse. Half the neighborhood showed up furious. She started reading a prepared statement about misunderstood administrative intentions. I stepped into the back of the room and shouted, "Play the recording, Hazel. Tell them about Phase 3. Everyone turned. Hazel froze, so I played it. Her voice echoed through a portable speaker, crystal clear. People lost it. Shouts, chairs screeching, some old guy actually threw a binder at the wall. Callum tried to say it was taken out of context. Hazel stormed out. The board tried to regroup. They locked down the Facebook page. They called emergency legal counsel. They accused of defamation. Then, 2 days later, something completely unhinged happened. The playground equipment arrived. Flatbed trucks dumped swings, monkey bars, and plastic slides right into the middle of my yard. At 5 a.m., not even installed. Just on top of my crushed flower beds and uprooted fence posts. No crew, no permit. Just a pile of metal and plastic dumped in silent protest like it was some deranged message. I called the sheriff. They sent a deputy who blinked at the scene, mumbled something about civil property lines, and drove off. The media picked up the story within 24 hours. Rogue HOA declares land grab made local headlines. Reporters camped out on my curb. Hazel stopped answering calls. Then Callum's house went dark, literally. Power shut off. He vanished. Iris never showed up to another board meeting. Then the strangest thing happened. The HOA, legally a local judge, ruled that since multiple board members had resigned and others were under investigation for fraud and document falsification, the HOA had no legal authority to function. It was pending legal review, but no one cleaned up the mess. The playground equipment stayed. No one removed the backhoe tracks from my yard. No trees replanted. The entire neighborhood entered this weird state of limbo. Former board members vanished into silence. Some neighbors started treating me like a hero. Others avoided me like I was cursed. I kept my camera up. Trail cams, motion lights, guns locked and loaded. I didn't trust that it was over. The playground equipment sat in the middle of my yard like a taunt. Boxes of rubber mulch, unassembled slides, plastic towers, no permits, no crew. Just dumped with full intent to provoke. I called everyone, zoning, the sheriff, the county land office. They all said the same thing, so I dragged every last piece of it out with my bare hands. Took me hours, tore a ligament in my shoulder, didn't stop me. That night I snapped. I took every document from that USB drive, the forged maps, the emails, the secret recordings of Hazel and Callum, and I sent it all, not just to the local news. I sent it to every HOA watchdog group I could find. I uploaded it to social media. I mailed it to the county auditor's office and the state attorney general. By the end of the week, Hazel Clark's name was in the paper. The headlines were brutal. Photos of my backyard ran on every channel, the chopped down trees, the construction mess, the backhoe tracks and plastic fencing. I looked like a lunatic on TV, but I didn't care. Elias Monroe quietly resigned that Friday. No statement, no apology, just vanished. Callum Hayes tried to defend himself at a press conference. That didn't go well. A reporter played a clip of his voice saying, "We bury them in violations until they sell." He tried to deny it was him. Until the second clip played, "Doesn't matter what their deed says. If we plant the stake, it's ours." Within 2 weeks, he'd been served a court summons and slapped with an embezzlement suit over misused HOA funds. He stopped showing up to anything after that. Hazel, she ran. One morning a moving truck pulled up to her house. By noon she was gone. She didn't leave a forwarding address, no one saw her pack. The blinds stayed shut. She ghosted the neighborhood she once ruled like a queen. But just because the tyrants were gone didn't mean the damage vanished. The county voided the new HOA charter, calling it procedurally defective and likely criminal. The organization was officially disbanded, its bank accounts frozen, its authority revoked, but my land still classified as disputed in the county system. It would take a formal land title challenge and thousands in legal fees to reverse the paperwork Hazel filed. No one at the courthouse knew how long that would take. The trees I lost gone. Replacing them would cost more than the insurance payout if I had even received one. But because the damage wasn't caused by natural disaster or act of God, the insurer denied my claim. The property value dropped like a rock. Realtors called me a complicated listing. I'd won. I destroyed the board. I burned the HOA to the ground. But I was left with a ruined yard, legal bills, property no one wanted to touch, and neighbors who looked at me like I'd brought the fire, not the people who lit the match. No one offered to help fix my fence. No one replanted a tree. The neighbors stayed quiet now, not grateful, not hostile, just vacant, like they were afraid of what could rise up next. The Clinton Estates HOA was gone, but so was the neighborhood it pretended to protect. What remained was rotting mulch, fractured trust, dead trees, and property lines everyone pretended not to see. There was no resolution, just scorched ground, and I stayed in that house, alone with the wreckage, not because I wanted to, because I had to give them the satisfaction of watching me leave. Oh cool, an HOA just casually rewriting property lines like they're playing SimCity with real people's lives. Hazel and Callum should be in jail, plain and simple. They weren't managing a neighborhood, they were orchestrating a slow-motion land grab backed by forged maps and bootleg bylaws. I hope every homeowner they screwed over joins a class action lawsuit and drags them through court until they're bankrupt and renting a moldy basement apartment. You don't get to bulldoze people's rights and walk away with a smug smirk. What they did wasn't mismanagement, it was organized theft dressed up in khakis and HOA badges. Burn it all down. Oh, you know what kills me? They dropped a playground in the guy's yard like it was a mob warning. That's not just hostile, it's disgusting. What kind of HOA thinks that's acceptable? That's the HOA equivalent of throwing a horse head in someone's bed. Hazel and her goons were on some feudal lord power trip. I hope the backhoe they used to tear up his yard ends up at the bottom of a lake with them chained to it. I'd have torched the equipment and mailed the ashes to the board. You don't try to take someone's land and expect them to smile and say thank you. This was abuse, full stop. And the people who stood by and watched, they're just as guilty. They let it happen, they let it keep happening. This entire HOA sounds like a criminal enterprise hiding behind flower beds in fine print. You don't reinterpret land boundaries out of thin air. That's called fraud. And not the oopsie paperwork kind. This was intentional, systemic, and repeated. The board weaponized bureaucracy to steamroll residents who couldn't afford to fight back. They buried people in violations, destroyed private property, and faked documentation. Hazel Clark and Callum Hayes didn't act like board members. They acted like racketeers. And I guarantee this isn't the only HOA pulling these stunts. Iris was the only one with a soul, but even she waited too long to speak up. They left lives in ruins. They stole equity. They tore down trees people planted with their own hands. You can't fix that by just disbanding. I hope the state comes for their pensions. I hope liens hit their bank accounts. I hope they can't rent a condo without getting laughed out of the leasing office. You don't just get to walk away from this kind of power abuse. You pay for it.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share.